This is Kirtop. Here are 100 unexplored archaeological discoveries. The Bloody Waterfall. Antarctica is a continent of records and oddities, like the Crimson Stream from Taylor Glacier. The ice here should be sterile, but the meltwater runs deep red. Scientists once thought iron was to blame. A rusty flow seemed obvious. In 2023, analysis revealed nanoscale spheres in the water, particles smaller than viruses with iron cores coated in calcium and aluminum. Under the ice, they're colorless, but once the water surfaces, the shell oxidizes and the stream turns blood red. The source is an ancient salty lake sealed off millions of years ago. Salt lowers the freezing point and releases heat during crystallization, keeping the water liquid even at -10 degrees. In this closed, salty system, bacteria isolated since before modern ecosystems formed survive by feeding on sulfur compounds without light or oxygen. This mirrors potential life under Europa or Enceladus's ice. Thus, the Bloody Waterfall isn't mysterious, but shows how chemistry, microbes, and geology can create an alien scene on Earth. Lake Vostok, one of the 20th century's greatest geographical discoveries, lies beneath 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice. Remarkably, this real lake was hidden under a thick ice layer and has likely been isolated from the outside world for several million years. The size of Vostok is astonishing. The total area of the lake is about 16,000 square kilometers, and its depth can reach up to 1,200 meters. Most likely, it remains unfrozen due to underground geothermal sources. Drilling the well was a complex and lengthy process. It began in 1989, was suspended in 1999 due to concerns about contaminating the unique ecosystem, and resumed only in 2006 to be completed in 2013. Since 2015, active research on the lake has begun. Scientists found microorganisms in surface water samples, including an unknown species. The real intrigue lies in future samples from the bottom, where thermal springs may make the water suitable for life. Soon, scientists might discover entirely new creatures. Who knows how evolution unfolded in Vostok's isolated ecosystem? Tsaritsa Morneid. In 1900, the Briton William Flanders Petrie, while studying the ancient necropolis of el-Ka'ab in Abydos, Egypt, discovered a rich tomb. The archaeologist was extremely delighted and inspired. Based on the scale of the burial, he decided that he had found the final resting place of a previously unknown pharaoh. But after some time, it had to be admitted that the occupant of this tomb was a woman named Morneid, who ruled Egypt around 2950 before Christ. I wish I could tell you about her beauty, conquests, love affairs, or achievements, but almost nothing is known about Tsaritsa Morneid. Still, she is recognized as the first woman to independently rule a state. After her husband Pharaoh Jet's death, Morneid became regent for her son, the future Pharaoh Dini, serving for about 10 years. When Petrie unearthed the tomb, no one knew about the existence of the goddess Nate, so he mistook Morneid for a male pharaoh with a strange name. In those distant times, Nate was considered the patroness of princesses and queens. It was in honor of the goddess that the name Morneid was given, which meant beloved of night. Nothing is known about Morneid's parents, but it is possible that, following the tradition of Egyptian royal dynasties, she was the sister, or at least the cousin of her own husband. Marriages were arranged within the family so that power would not pass to another family. At that time, the queen's great-grandfather may have been Narmer, the first pharaoh of Egypt's first dynasty. Morneid's tomb differed from the pyramids we know. They built mastabas then, flat-roofed structures resembling palaces. Mastabas had storerooms and burial chambers for servants, officials, animals, and others sacrificed to serve their mistress in the afterlife. Queen Morneid's mastaba included such inhabitants. Metal objects from Gaius, the Lamana caves in Ecuador, have attracted the attention of not only archaeologists for many years, but also fans of mysticism and ufology. The story of the discovery of metal objects in these caves is shrouded in mystery and mysticism. According to legends, metal plates were found in Lamanna, engraved with symbols resembling modern diagrams, maps, and even technical drawings. These discoveries became the basis for hypotheses about the existence of an unknown civilization in the distant past that possessed highly developed technologies, or about contacts between ancient people and extraterrestrial beings. Supporters of these theories claim that such complex, detailed symbols could not have been created with primitive tools and must indicate more advanced knowledge. Some researchers even suggest that the plates could have served as star maps or technological instructions left by aliens. However, most scientists are very skeptical about these findings. There is no convincing evidence that the metal objects from Lamanna actually date back to ancient times. Some experts point to possible traces of modern metalworking and the inconsistency of these artifacts with the styles and technologies known in ancient Ecuador. Moreover, there is no reliable dating or context for the discovery of these items, which further undermines their authenticity. Archaeologists believe that these artifacts could have been created in a later period, possibly as part of a hoax or to attract tourists. Thus, despite the fascinating and mysterious stories about the metal objects from the Lamanna caves, their origin and significance remain in question. The story of the Lamanna caves is an example of how myths and legends can intertwine with reality, creating captivating but often unreliable accounts of our past. The treasure is older than the Iron Age. Researchers have finally uncovered the mystery of two unusual artifacts from the Golden Horde, the treasures of Valena. Among the treasures of the Iberian Bronze Age, a pair of ornaments was found, partially of extraterrestrial origin. Dull bracelets and a rusty hollow hemisphere, decorated with gold, turned out to be forged from metal that fell from the sky as a meteorite. The discovery was made by Salvador Rovi Lorins, former head of the conservation department at the National Archaeological Museum of Spain. His work showed that the technologies and metalworking methods in Iberia 3,000 years ago were more advanced than previously thought. The Valena treasure cache includes 66 items found in 1963 in what is now Alicante. These ornaments are considered a striking example of Bronze Age jewelry art on the Iberian Peninsula and in Europe. Two ornaments, a small hemisphere and a bracelet in the form of a torque, have elements that archaeologists have identified as iron. This created a problem since the Iron Age on the Iberian Peninsula began around 850 before Christ, while the gold ornaments are dated to between 1,500 and 1,200 before Christ. The difference between meteoritic and terrestrial iron lies in the high nickel content of meteoritic iron, despite the rust. The results of the study showed that the hemisphere and the bracelet were made from meteoritic iron, dated to approximately 1,400, 1,200 before Christ. Giant Calighi. The ditches along the Roman Fort Magna have long been known for their surprises. The May discovery topped them all. In the ankle-breaker ditch's anaerobic sludge, archaeologists found a perfectly preserved leather shoe with layered soles, lacing, a strap, and nearly all its hobnails. It measures 32 centimeters, British size 12 to 14 or European 47 to 48. By contrast, the average legionary Calighi was only about size 41. The giant was real. A second, slightly smaller pair was unearthed in the same layer, dated to the 2nd century AD. Everything was found at the bottom of the ankle breaker, a clever trap where an attacker would step in, fall into a pit, and leave his ankle to the Roman cavalry. The bog water cut off oxygen, so the leather, wooden fastener, and metal studs have survived almost intact. Scientists are trying to determine whether the owner was an elite bodyguard recruited from barbarian giants or simply a rare centurion giant. Burnt forest. This discovery expands our knowledge about the occurrence of forest fires in the Cretaceous period, showing that such episodes were more frequent than previously thought. According to a study by an international group of scientists, 75 million years ago, Antarctica was engulfed by forest fires. Experts came to this conclusion after discovering fossilized plants with traces of charcoal, dating back to the time when dinosaurs still roamed the Earth. Once dense forests on James Ross Island were burned during the Upper Cretaceous, a division of the Cretaceous system dated from 100 to 66 million years ago. According to experts, the main cause of this event could have been volcanic activity triggered by tectonic processes. James Ross Island is of volcanic origin and is located near the western tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. Scientists suggest that the fragments of charcoal are the remains of burned gymnosperm trees, a group of plants that includes conifers, cycads, ginkgo, and netophytes. Cretaceous period forest fires were a global event that affected almost all continents. But new research by scientists shows that these fires reached as far south as Antarctica. Millions of years ago, Antarctica was a true forest paradise with abundant flowering vegetation, but volcanoes turned this paradise into an uninhabitable hell. It is worth noting that the fossilized samples were analyzed under a stereo microscope, an optical microscope that works by reflecting light off the object being studied. Using this tool, scientists were able to look deep inside the fossilized plants and confirm that the samples were charred. They deciphered a 14th century inscription. A 14th century inscription was found on Giresun Island, 1.2 kilometers from Turkey's Giresun province on the Black Sea's southeastern shore. Throughout its history, this island has been known by different names and has preserved traces of life from ancient times. Largely because of this, it has become the subject of many legends and mythological stories. For example, it is known as the island where the Amazon women once lived, as well as the mythological story of how Heracles came here to find the Golden Fleece. Excavations have been carried out here since 2009, and during this time, archaeologists have made many important discoveries. Among the finds are various ceramic items, frescoes, coins, as well as skeletal remains. In addition, ruins of temple walls, wells, and tombs have been discovered here. The inscription in question was found on the island last year. According to scientists, it is very significant because it provides new information about the history of both the island itself and the entire region. The inscription was found on the floor of a tower structure and dates back to the reign of Alexios III Megas Komnenos, Emperor of Trebizond. It was made with goose feathers on a terracotta slab measuring 30 by 50 centimeters. The inscription states that the buildings and walls on the island were commissioned by the Honorable Maria, wife of Pinkernes Kyriakos, son of the governor of Giresun, Rustam. This name gives scientists reason to talk about the existence of strategic marriages between Turkmen beys in the region and the Komnenos dynasty, an ancient Byzantine aristocratic family known in history as the Great Komnenoi. Scientists also note that the importance of the inscription lies in the fact that it is a unique work in itself, written in the regional alphabet of the Empire of Trebizond, Nomoli figurines. One of the most mysterious artifacts of the African continent is the Nomoli figurines, found in Sierra Leone in West Africa. These ancient sculptures, carved from stone, depict strange beings with disproportionately large heads, bulging eyes, and other unusual features that are not characteristic of human anatomy. Some of them even depict scenes that can be interpreted as mythological or religious. The distinctive shapes and features of these figurines have drawn interest from both archaeologists and ancient astronaut theory supporters. Some researchers believe that the Nomoli figurines may represent images of extraterrestrial beings with whom the ancient inhabitants of the region might have had contact. According to them, the strange proportions and features of the figurines could indicate that they were created under the impression of real beings of extraterrestrial origin. Although this theory has no scientific evidence, it adds an aura of mystery to the Nomoli figurines and attracts the attention of ufologists and fans of the mystical. Official science regards the Nomoli figurines as religious or ritual objects. It is believed that these artifacts were most likely used in ancient ceremonies or rituals related to the worship of gods or spirits, as they may have symbolized certain mythological characters. As I mentioned to you earlier, when archaeologists or historians cannot explain the origin of an artifact, it inevitably becomes an object of religious significance. Interestingly, Nemoli figurines are often found deep in the ground, sometimes together with other ancient artifacts, various iron objects, or weapons, which makes it more difficult to date them and determine their cultural context. Some discoveries suggest that these artifacts could have existed in very ancient times, possibly long before the appearance of known civilizations in this region. Mycenaean gold. In 2004, archaeologists uncovered an untouched Kazanaki Tholos tomb near Volos, a rare chance to see a Mycenaean luxury set in its original form. 7 burials lay on the stone floor, surrounded by 165 gold items, tiny discs, tubes, beads, and weapon parts. Some plates were less than a millimeter thick. Craftsmen hammered 200 miniature sun-shaped circles from 10 grams of metal and sewed them onto fabric, making the shroud reflective armor. The jewelry's main feature is its extreme fragility. Gold was mixed with minimal copper for shine, and edges were left unreinforced. This jewelry was made solely for burial ceremonies, not daily wear. In contrast, complex items like rings and dagger handles used gold as a thin shell over a bronze or wooden base covered with foil, with joints hidden by granulation and cloisonné enamel. In this way, luxury is preserved visually, while the metal is saved physically. This discovery revealed one of the main rules of the late Bronze Age. Gold was not just a currency, but a shorthand for power. The thinner the sheet, the greater the visual impact, and the clearer the message to descendants. Our family could afford to shine, even if there weren't really enough resources for it. Evidence of a large meteorite impact. Melted particles of extraterrestrial material collected by scientists in East Antarctica indicates that about 430,000 years ago, a large meteorite or asteroid fell here. It did not leave a crater because it turned into a jet of molten meteorite while still approaching Earth. Nevertheless, according to the author's estimates, the force of this impact event was greater than that of the Tunguska meteorite. A team led by Dr. Matthias van Kinneken from the University of Kent School of Physical Sciences found evidence in the Sur-Rondaine Mountains of a powerful impact event 430,000 years ago caused by an asteroid or large meteorite 100 to 150 meters wide. The scientists found tiny particles, condensation spherules ranging from 100 to 300 micrometers in size, that formed when the meteorite, just before reaching Earth, exploded near the surface, releasing a jet of molten and vaporized metal. Experts classify such events as transitional, occupying an intermediate position between explosions of extraterrestrial bodies in the atmosphere and impact events that result in meteorite craters. Scientists say large airbursts happen more often than crater-forming meteorite impacts, and some are very powerful, but they're hard to find in the geological record because they leave only tiny melted extraterrestrial particles. To study the 17 black spheres discovered near Walnumfjelli's summit in the Sur-Rondaine Mountains, the authors used modern microscopy and laser analysis. It turned out that based on their composition, the spherules collected by the researchers belong to chondrites, and the ratio of trace elements and high nickel content confirms their originally extraterrestrial nature. However, unique oxygen isotope signatures indicate that, upon falling, the particles interacted with the Antarctic ice sheet. Through numerical modeling, the scientists proved that, in terms of scale, this event was larger than the Tunguska meteorite fall in 1908 and the Chelyabinsk event in 2013. The oldest private company. Archaeologists in Turkey have found a cuneiform tablet about 4,000 years old. This discovery made it possible to establish that the tablet recorded the creation of one of the earliest commercial companies. The excavations were carried out in the ruins of the ancient city of Kultepe, located in Anatolia. Many cuneiform tablets created around 1950 before Christ have been found at this site, which confirms their age to be around 4,000 years. The tablet is the oldest known record of commercial registration. The first commercial company was founded with a charter capital of 15 kilograms of gold and had 12 founders. Each of them automatically became a shareholder of the company, with everyone having different shares depending on how much gold they contributed. The company's capital was managed for 12 years by a merchant named Amor Ishtar. All transactions were strictly recorded and sealed in the presence of witnesses. If someone withdrew their share early, they received about 4 kilograms of silver instead of 1 kilogram of gold. This ensured capital stayed in the company longer. This discovery is key evidence of early business practices and shows how ancient commercial activity was already regulated and recorded. The gas mummy. While digging a shallow trench in busy Puente Piedra, gas company workers expected to find a stone fragment, not a glimpse into a 1,000-year past. Instead of sand, their shovel hit the dark trunk of a dried huarango tree. Ancient Peruvians used these to mark graves. Archaeologists then found a dark cocoon of reed fabric inside. A teenager, around 15, sat with his legs tucked under him, as if awaiting a ritual that happened a millennium late. Changshe craftsmen from the 11th to 13th centuries mastered natural mummification using dry air, a cotton shroud, and some ocean salt, which still lingers in Lima's smog. In this city of 10 million, you realize hundreds of such unseen neighbors remain beneath your feet. The Fiscum battle axe. At first glance, it looks like a black obsidian boomerang, but this is an elite battle axe from the late Neolithic era. A fisherman from Norway's Fiscum Lake pulled it up with his net back in the 1780s, weighed it. Exactly 700 grams of solid basalt, smooth as polished marble. It dates back to 2850 to 2350 before Christ. The artifact is linked to the battle axe culture and is notable for its perfect symmetry. The blade is keel-shaped and the handle hole, drilled from both sides with stone tools, took days to make. Why invest so much effort? These axes rarely show chipped edges, suggesting they weren't used as weapons but served as status symbols. Holding one displayed your access to rare materials and skilled artisanship. Polishing it to a mirror shine is a story of its own. Basalt was ground with quartz sand until a glossy surface formed, turning the axe into a black mirror, possibly used in rituals. Sunlight reflecting off it would light up the owner's face, symbolizing a link to the heavens. Today, the Fiscum axe is at the Museum of Cultural History in Oslo. Under glass, it resembles a modern designer piece, but remember, this blade is 5,000 years old. Pyramids of an ancient civilization. According to researchers, these structures are man-made. They were built in those ancient times when jungles, not snow and ice, covered the continent. The pyramid structures discovered by scientists in Antarctica are considered to be man-made. Researchers are convinced that this continent was not always frozen and that it once served as a home for an unknown ancient civilization. The structures were built at a time when Antarctica was covered with tropical forests. There is no doubt that the pyramids found in the eternal ice are the work of intelligent humans, since the objects were constructed with the highest precision, making any natural origin impossible. Externally, the Antarctic pyramids resemble their famous Egyptian counterparts, Canadian runes. Northern Ontario seldom has major archaeological finds, but the 2018 hurricane caused a sensation when it uprooted a century-old pine near Wawa. Beneath the roots lay a granite slab about 2 by 1.5 meters. Its surface was glacier polished, and a neat frame was carved along the edges. Inside are 255 Elder Futhark runes, forming the full Lord's Prayer. Every carving is flawless and uniform, as if made with a known script. To the right, an engraved boat holds 16 figures with 14 X-shaped crosses below of unknown meaning. Radiocarbon dating is unhelpful, but geochemists found a thin oxide layer at the base formed over 2 centuries. The slab dates to the early 19th century, when Swedish and Norwegian Viking settlers developed the area. However, the runes are from a later period, resembling Scandinavian ethnographic monuments, and the Christian prayer hints at a missionary context. The main question is why the slab ended up face down in the forest. One theory is it was an altar in a temporary lumberjack camp church. Another is it served as a memorial to a lost crew. 16 in the boat, and 14 crosses may symbolize survivors and victims of a Great Lakes shipwreck. Regardless of the mystery, the inscription became North America's longest runic prayer. The oldest portrait of a human. This is believed to be the oldest surviving human portrait. The woman with a distorted face lived in what is now southern Czech Republic among rhinoceroses, sculptures, and ritual bonfires, and was a shaman. Yes, this is the oldest evidence that, before recorded history, clergy faced no gender discrimination. Our Lady's unusual looks likely influenced her path. Her left and right sides are different, and her eye is affected, probably from a birth injury. The sculpted portrait of the shaman lady, about 25,000 to 27,000 years old, was found at a Paleolithic settlement at the foot of a rocky hill. South Moravia is where this took place, near the village of Dolní Věstonice, after which the settlement was named. The climate is pleasant now, but in the era of the mysterious shaman woman, Moravia was cold and home to reindeer, cave lions, woolly rhinoceroses, and mammoths. Round huts, like the chum tents of the Nenets and Khanty peoples, stood behind mammoth tusk fences, each with 1 to 5 hearths. Archaeologists discovered hundreds of ceramic figurines, lions, rhinoceroses, and Paleolithic Venuses in the ashes. This is the site of the world's oldest ceramics. Just look at this Venus. It's a masterpiece even today. The settlement's people either traveled widely or traded with distant regions. Shells from the Mediterranean were found here, though the nearest coast is over 500 kilometers away. Previously, it was believed weaving began 5,000 to 8,000 years ago, but fine woolen fabric imprints were found on Dolní Věstonice ceramics. The shaman woman wore dresses, not just mammoth hides. Mammoths were her main protein source, but about 25% came from freshwater fish caught with nets. How do we know all this about her profession and diet? Well, she was found, this lady, under the floor of one of the huts. Years after the portrait was discovered, the woman, about 36 to 45 years old, was buried with a fox in her hands. On top, they placed 2 mammoth shoulder blades with mysterious symbols and covered everything with sacred red ochre. By the way, this is roughly how the peoples of the far north buried their shamans, even in historical times. And yes, her skull is deformed on the left side, just like in the famous portrait. Siberian blacksmith. The Krasnoyarsk Pinchuga 6 excavation seemed like a typical Xiongnu burial mound until a buckle with a welded loop was found. Metallographic analysis revealed real welding, a major technological advance for the 3rd century AD. Nearby, miniature hammers, knife blanks, and part of a charred forge were found in the same grave, cremated with the remains and tools, a classic funeral rite for a craftsman who, according to beliefs, would need his forge in the afterlife. For Siberia of that time, such welded seams had never been recorded before. The composition of the seam, iron plus phosphorus, matches the practice of steppe blacksmiths among the Xiongnu, but the method itself clearly comes from somewhere further south. This means the technique arrived in transit through the Altai-Yenisei trade corridor, got stuck in an isolated settlement, and was preserved there. An artifact more valuable than gold. In 2023, in Carlisle in northern England, a unique artifact was discovered at the site of an ancient Roman bath, made from a special substance that was more precious than gold to the ancient Romans. This item, discovered by volunteers and archaeologists, is a solid sample of Tyrian purple. Producing this ancient dye required processing around 12,000 Mediterranean mollusks. Tyrian purple, famously made in Tyre, Lebanon, was prized for its vividness and lasting color, and used to dye clothes and paint walls. The process of making it was complex and labor-intensive, which made this pigment extremely expensive and available only to the upper classes of the Roman Empire. The sample found in Carlisle was used for creating frescoes or dyeing fabrics. This is the only known example of a solid sample of Tyrian purple in northern Europe, and possibly in the entire Roman Empire. This discovery not only highlights the complexity and richness of ancient Roman culture, but also contributes to further study of the interactions between ancient civilizations and the spread of their cultural and material achievements beyond traditional boundaries. Huge deposits of dinosaur bones. During an Antarctic expedition, a group of scientists from Australia, the United States of America, and South Africa discovered more than a ton of fossils and dinosaur remains up to 71 million years old. The unique discovery was reported to American Broadcasting Company News by Steve Salisbury, a scientist from the University of Queensland. Together with colleagues from other scientific institutions around the world, he worked on James Ross and Vega Islands in Antarctica. These islands are among the few places in the region where snow is minimal in the summer. At the same time, the rock formations date back to the time of the dinosaurs. The first dinosaur remains in Antarctica were found on James Ross Island by Argentine archaeologists in 1986. Later, specialists found single fossils in 2006 as well. During a new expedition in February and March 2016, scientists slowly moved across the islands, examining every stone and covering about 10 kilometers daily. The result was an unprecedentedly rich haul. In total, more than a ton of dinosaur remains were found. Some of them are up to 71 million years old. The fossils were delivered to Chile and then sent to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pennsylvania for further study. Scientists warned it will take years to classify all discovered species. Finds include remains of a plesiosaur, Mesosaurus, marine lizards featured in Jurassic period films, and various birds, such as ducks from the end of the Cretaceous period. The smile of an Indian resembles a funny face scratched onto a school desk, but it's actually a North American petroglyph from the 11th to 17th centuries. Part of the complex features a lion among 37 figures, with the stone covered in human and animal paw prints. This figure stands out with horns, feathers, and long palms. Scientists debate its meaning: a shaman, totem, spirit, or perhaps a humorous self-portrait? While most scenes depict serious hunting and cosmogony, here we see a cartoonish grimace, showing the artist allowed for irony and self-expression beyond sacred themes. The deadest place on the planet. American scientists from the University of Colorado and Brigham Young University in Utah made an incredible discovery. They found what may be the deadest place on planet Earth. According to Express, this unexplained phenomenon was found in the ice of Antarctica, specifically in a section in the center of the Transantarctic Mountains. During the expedition, the scientists initially wanted to analyze the soil composition on the Shackleton Glacier, which is located almost 500 kilometers from the South Pole. To their surprise, among the 204 samples, approximately 20% showed no signs of life at all. The dead soil samples were collected from the highest and driest parts of the glacier. These samples not only contain no microbes, but there were not even traces of microbial DNA. At first, the scientists thought this might have happened due to some mistake, but repeated analyses showed that there really were absolutely no signs of life in these soil samples. In a Cornwall field, two metal detector enthusiasts discovered a gold signal. They first found a flat piece with triangular garnet inlays, which looked like a typical 17th century Anglo-Saxon ring. Then, just steps away, they uncovered an even rarer item. A 57-gram raven's head figurine features neat nostril cuts, inlay sockets, and a garnet still set in the left eye. The right is missing. Analysis found the gold nearly pure, with small amounts of silver and copper. The artisan strengthened it with hundreds of microbead feathers and tightly set garnet triangles between them. The style resembles Sutton Hoo, but is more intricate, likely made later in an East Anglian royal workshop. Its purpose is unclear. It's too heavy for an earring and too short for a brooch. Scholars suggest it may be part of a ceremonial standard or ritual staff handle carried during a king's inauguration. The raven symbol is intentional, linked to Odin, god of war and wisdom, whose ravens brought battlefield news. The finds are currently undergoing the treasure procedure at the British Museum. If the expert commission confirms the dating and uniqueness, the object will officially be included in the list of the most important Anglo-Saxon jewelry pieces. Slave tag. A small slave tag with the engraved inscription 1853 was discovered in Charleston, South Carolina in 2021. The square copper tag acted as a permit, letting the servant work in the city away from their owner, who paid $10 to $35 for it. Charleston was the only United States city to issue such work permits, making the artifact very rare. The tag was found at the College of Charleston. This suggests that the servant lost the permit while working on the construction of the building, which was completed in 1785. Slave tags appeared in the United States in the 18th century and were used until 1865. Usually they bore a stamp with the date, the occupation of the enslaved person, and a registration number. This served as proof that the owner of the enslaved person had given permission for them to work for someone else and outside the owner's estate. The Fuente Magna bowl is a mysterious artifact found near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, which has also attracted archaeologists with its unusual imagery. The bowl, known as the Fuente Magna, is a large stone vessel with unusual inscriptions on its surface. These inscriptions amazed researchers with their resemblance to Sumerian cuneiform, one of the oldest writing systems that originated in Mesopotamia. The unusual nature of the inscription gave rise to a theory about possible contacts between the ancient cultures of Mesopotamia and South America. Supporters of this hypothesis claim that the bowl could serve as evidence of unknown migration routes, or even ancient sea voyages that connected these distant regions. However, skeptics point to the high likelihood of forgery. They argue that the bowl could have been created in a later period, possibly even in modern times, with the intention of causing a sensation. Around 100 to 150 years ago, it was very popular around the world to create such objects to attract people to fairs and make money off gullible citizens. Despite this, the exact origin and meaning of the Fuente Magna bowl remain unsolved, continuing to attract the interest of archaeologists and lovers of ancient history mysteries. Manuscript, a surprise. Imagine opening a medieval folio expecting dusty prayers, but instead you get a real attraction. Some pages flare up with huge initials, while others are covered with Turonian notes, an ancient shorthand that today only a couple of dozen specialists in the world can decipher. You find a page where letters form constellation shapes, blending a school primer with the night sky. Turning the page, you spot a tiny doodle. The scribe tested his pen, jotting a short bird poem. Wide margins fill half the page. Why waste costly parchment? The emptiness isn't wasted. Medieval students used margins for notes, and later, these spaces helped preserve books from mold. The humid air would start to damage the edges of the book, while the text remained untouched. There is also a completely unexpected format, the Bat Book. Such an almanac was worn hanging from the belt upside down, unfolded to its full length, and instantly provided a calendar, tables of lunar phases, and a list of saints for the whole year. The purple stains in the corners are scars from mold. The manuscript was once stored in dampness, and microbes managed to eat away at the pages. Scientists now count fungal growth rings. Similar to tree rings, these cosmetic defects hold hidden information, helping date library relocations, and even revise our understanding of that era's climate. Such visual Easter eggs turn a manuscript into more than just text, a real quest. Every note or unexpected insert connects us directly to the people who used the book centuries ago. Ceramic figurines from Mexico. In 1944, thousands of ceramic figurines were discovered in the Mexican city of Acámbaro, which have since sparked heated debates among scientists. These figurines depict people, animals, and even dinosaurs, which led to speculation about possible contact between ancient civilizations and dinosaurs, or the existence of a civilization with incredible knowledge of the ancient world. Some supporters of alternative theories even put forward hypotheses about extraterrestrial origin or influence. However, the authenticity of the Acámbaro figurines is seriously doubted by most scientists. Many researchers believe that these artifacts may be modern forgeries created to attract attention or for commercial gain. The lack of reliable dating and archaeological context raises doubts about their authenticity. They replace the alphabet. Quipu is a bundle of ropes with knots featuring a main cord and many colorful strings. For years, people thought Incas used knots just for counting, like an ancient abacus. A team of linguists and programmers uploaded 21 complete quipus from a Peruvian museum into a neural network. The algorithm examined the rope's color, its distance from the main cord, and the sequence of knots. The machine quickly spotted repeating patterns, like identical words in a long text. It found that certain knots on yellow strings matched records about grain storehouses, while knots on red strings were linked to lists of warriors. Scientists compared this to colonial Spanish documents and realized quipus conveyed much more than just counting. For instance, a green string with 3 short knots usually indicates a corn storage site, while a red string with a double knot may represent an army tax. If this is confirmed across many samples, quipus will be seen not just as calculators, but as a real writing system. This would shift the Incas from civilizations without writing to those who used a unique rope-based alphabet. An unknown creature to science. New Zealand scientists have discovered something interesting in the waters of Antarctica. During an expedition on the research vessel Tangaroa, scientists caught a previously unknown jelly-like creature off the coast of Antarctica. The researchers conducted a real sweep along the continent's shores and caught various sea creatures. In particular, a mesh trap was lowered to a depth of 3,500 meters off the coast of Antarctica. What they caught surprised everyone. The main catch was mud, but only after sifting through 12 buckets of mud did the scientists discover this creature, a transparent, jelly-like fish. Dr. Andrew Stewart, head of the expedition, said the creature's identity is unknown. Scientists will analyze its vertebrae to identify the species. Currently, the new fish looks like a sea cucumber. Polar explorers set up a deep-sea camera on the trap to study the seabed. They noted that, at such depths, the bottom appears deserted, resembling an uninhabited planet. A strange stone on the beach. While walking along Edisto Beach in South Carolina one evening, traveler Kyle Finley discovered a fossilized tooth of a prehistoric American mastodon. Kyle has vacationed at Edisto Beach with his family since childhood, always enjoying fossil hunting. His latest find was unexpected. A natural history museum representative in London confirmed Kyle's photos show an American mastodon tooth. The American mastodon, a distant relative of mammoths and elephants, lived in North America from the late Miocene to late Pleistocene and went extinct about 10,000 years ago. These animals were shorter and sturdier than mammoths. Females reached 2 meters in height, while males grew up to 3 meters previously. Megalodon teeth and remains of other prehistoric mammals had been found on this beach. Venus from Parcenta. In December 2022, a Polish farmer near Kołobrzeg dug up a 12-centimeter figurine of a woman with accentuated hips and a narrow waist from his field. 3 years in the laboratory, and the dating is ready. About 6,000 years old, the early Neolithic era. Electron microscope scans revealed a flint cutter's marks and clay matching the Parcenta River floodplain, proving local landowners made the figurine, not traders. This matters because northern Poland, once seen as outside Venus culture, whose famous figurines came from southern Europe, now has its own mother, Earth, moving the cult zone's boundary hundreds of kilometers north. Prehistoric canoes at the bottom of the lake. The Wisconsin Historical Society discovered 11 ancient boats in Lake Mendota, ranging in age from 4.5 to 800 years, as well as fishing nets and tools. The canoes were found at the bottom of the lake and along the shoreline. Experts suggest that an unknown civilization once flourished here. The Ho-Chunk tribe lived in the vicinity of Lake Mendota, but even earlier, Paleo-Indians appeared here about 12,000 years ago. The boats, known as dugout canoes, are made from a single log. Archaeologists have been excavating at the lake since 2021 and discovered a 1,200-year-old boat 4.5 meters long with ancient fishing nets at a depth of 9 meters. Radiocarbon dating showed that the oldest canoe is about 4,500 years old, while the most recent boat, made of red oak, dates to around 1250 AD. The boats were raised from the bottom of the lake using inflatable bags and transported to the shore. Other canoes, due to their fragility, are not planned to be recovered by archaeologists. Boar's tusk helmet. In the hills near Pylos, just a few meters from the palace of Nestor, archaeologists have uncovered a find that previously could only be seen on the pages of the Iliad. In a 15th century before Christ's burial, dozens of thin, expertly drilled wild boar tusk plates were found. Arranged by their attachment points, they formed a complete battle helmet, the same kind Homer described when Marion gives Odysseus armor. Each plate covered the skull like a scale, with leather lining reinforced by bronze rivets. Making such a helmet required about 50 tusks, indicating a major hunt and high warrior status. Nearby, a bronze lyre, a peg, and remnants of myrrh oil were found, symbols of elite status and warfare. Radiocarbon dating estimates around 1500 before Christ, making the helmet at least 300 years older than Homer's text. This confirms the boar's tusk armor was real for Mycenaean rulers, and oral epics preserve details archaeology is only now discovering. The Trojan War still sparks debate among historians, but this helmet shows that its attributes once rang with real metal. Human elongated skulls. Scientists are questioning if aliens are involved after Smithsonian Institution archaeologists found 3 elongated human skulls in Antarctica's Lapale region. Previously, it was thought humans hadn't visited the continent before modern times. Experts noted similar elongated skulls were found in Peru and Egypt. This suggests that ancient civilizations had contact with each other long before what is written in history textbooks. It shows that there was contact thousands of years ago between civilizations in Africa, South America, and Antarctica. The shape of the elongated skulls is believed to have resulted from intentional deformation. An infant's head, while the skull was still soft, was tightly wrapped with cloth. This characteristic was used to give a mark of distinction to the upper classes of society over the lower ones, where children of the elite in many ancient cultures underwent this procedure. However, some researchers doubt whether artificial cranial deformation can change not only the shape of the skull, but also increase its volume. The sensational discovery has many other physical characteristics that significantly distinguish these skulls from normal human ones. As a result, scientists are now struggling with the question of whether these skulls are human or belong to some other species of humanoids. Zorat's Kharer. The large megalithic complex Zorat's Kharer, also known as the Armenian Stonehenge, is one of the most mysterious ancient structures in the Caucasus. This ancient monument, located in the south of Armenia, consists of hundreds of vertically placed stones, some of which reach several meters in height. Particular interest is drawn to the stones with holes in their upper parts, which attract the attention of researchers and lovers of mysticism. Zorat's Kharer is dated to around the 6th millennium before Christ, making it one of the oldest structures of its kind. Supporters of theories about extraterrestrial civilizations suggest that these holes could have been used for observing the stars, or even for communicating with extraterrestrial beings. They claim that the precision of the hole's placement and the orientation of the stones may indicate astronomical or some other more complex functions that could not have been accessible to the ancient inhabitants of Armenia without outside help. However, there is no scientific evidence for these theories. Most researchers believe that the Armenian Stonehenge was an ancient observatory used for observing celestial bodies, or it was a place where rituals and ceremonies were held. This ancient monument still draws researchers and tourists, fueling curiosity about its true role in ancient civilizations. The Antikythera mechanism, the world's oldest computer, feels like something from Indiana Jones. Bronze wheels, a handle, dials, eclipses, ancient national aeronautics and space administration in a box. But a recent 3D simulation literally broke the legend down to its gears. Scientists recreated every cog with micron-level precision and ran the virtual device through a full calendar cycle. The result was shocking. After 4 months of continuous operation, the gears started to catch, the load increased, and by the 6th month, the digital copy simply jammed. The error wasn't in the software. The model takes into account all casting defects, the pitch of the teeth and the play in the axles measured on the real artifact. If the numbers are correct, the original mechanism couldn't reliably predict eclipses years ahead, contrary to enthusiasts' claims. The desktop planetarium toy idea seems more likely. Turning the handle shows the sun and moon's movement, impressive for elites but not useful for priest astronomers' daily calculations. Another possibility is that 2,000 years underwater corroded the bronze, ruining perfect synchronization. If that's true, the original device worked flawlessly, and we're only seeing its rusted remains. To test this, engineers must recreate it with smooth gears and rerun the chronomarathon. While debates continue, one thing is clear. The Antikythera mechanism is as puzzling as a Rubik's Cube, with antiquity adding mystery. Either we underestimate ancient engineers or overestimate our desire for super technology in every mystery. Ancient Citadel. The structure is hidden under a huge layer of ice, but scientists have made out the remains of ancient walls in it. Researchers exploring the Shackleton Ridge in Antarctica stumbled upon an unexpected find. Strange objects resembling ancient buildings. Their outlines looked like the walls of a fortress. It's well known that Lazareff and Bellingshausen were the first to reach Antarctica in 1820, but they were representatives of our modern civilization. Could Antarctica have been explored by earlier civilizations? Some think the structures seen on camera are ancient pyramids, like those in Egypt and South America. Others suggest they're the remains of a citadel built by an ancient civilization. Unknown people may have settled Antarctica before it was covered in snow. Minoan Grill, the Museum of Prehistoric Thera, displays what appears to be a regular barbecue grill, but it's over 3,000 years old. The Minoans from Santorini made stone blocks resembling miniature fortress walls on bullheads, with slots for skewers above and a row of round holes below. Air flowed through these openings, fanning coals and turning them into Bronze Age turbo grills. Picture Akrotiri sailors grilling goat meat on these stones, smoke wafting through streets now buried under volcanic ash. Scientists have long debated why the Minoans needed such mobility. Was it for ship banquets, street trading, or ritual feast at sanctuaries? Whichever theory turns out to be correct, the technology works flawlessly. The air starts beneath the coals, passes through the row of holes, and heats the stone evenly. Modern chefs do the same thing when they place a fan next to the grill. Every time we bite into a hot piece of meat on the Aegean coast, we are repeating a recipe that the Minoans perfected long before the Trojan War. Ancient means of payment. A bronze coin linked to Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea, was minted between AD 26 and 36 during Roman Emperor Tiberius's reign. This small artifact vividly symbolizes the Roman Empire's power in ancient Judea. Coins from this time show not just economic activity, but also the era's political and religious sides. The obverse often displayed a Roman cult object, highlighting Rome's intent to spread its culture. However, this sparked conflict with the local Jewish population, for whom such images were considered blasphemous. On the reverse side of the coin, symbols such as the cornucopia or tympanum were often depicted, symbolizing prosperity and control. The inscriptions on the coin mention Tiberius, reinforcing his authority as ruler, an unknown statue in a Thai forest. Recently, mushroom pickers in Thailand found a stone sculpture of a woman resembling the mother of Buddha, and reported the discovery to researchers. Despite the remoteness of the region, archaeologists have doubts about the origin of the statue. This discovery has sparked debates among scholars who are trying to determine the age of the statue. One of those who found the statue shared the discovery on social media, expressing his surprise and admiration. He called it a blessing, since the sculpture was found in a place he had known for a long time. The sculpture, carved on the sloping surface of a rock, depicts a woman in full height. She has long hair, traditional clothing including a long skirt and a heavy scarf on her neck, and the woman is holding a branch above her head. Some believe that the sculpture dates back to the Dvaravati period, a kingdom in Southeast Asia from the 6th to the 11th century, and depicts Maya Devi, the mother of Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha. However, this theory is not universally accepted. An art historian from Silpakorn University in Thailand believes that the sculpture may be from a later period. He claims that the sculptor imitated ancient Indian art, but created his work later. The specialist points to the facial features of the sculpture, such as the eyebrows and lips, which do not match those of the Dvaravati era. He also notes that the depiction of Maya Devi with a fig tree branch was not common in the region during that time. The fig tree from Southeast Asia has religious significance for Buddhists and Hindus. Egyptian towers. When people think of the homes of ancient Egyptians, most imagine squat huts made of mud, brick. Excavations in Emet radically changed this picture. Archaeologists have uncovered a district from the late period, an entire street of tower houses with 4 to 5 floors, forming a dense wall along the processional road to the Temple of Wajeh. The height is estimated at 12 to 15 meters, which for the 7th century before Christ is equivalent to a modern 5-story building. The lower levels are filled with grain silos and beer vats. Above are living rooms with narrow chimneys, and higher up, covered terraces with preserved date pits and bronze sistrums of Hathor. Evenings featured dining and music rituals. Just 5 steps from the doors, a polished limestone promenade leads to Wajet's temple. The slabs still reflect the setting sun, and the cult columns remain where 7th century before Christ craftsmen set them. It's like a mini Memphis in the provinces. A dense high-rise area with a market, temple, and sacred road all close together. 3 repair layers in the masonry show the towers were lived in for at least 150 years, and reliefs of Harpocrates and green faience Ushabtis remain on the facades, proving religion and daily life coexisted here. Emet breaks the old idea of a single-story Egypt. The map of Antarctica from the year 1513. This map was made by the Turkish Admiral Piri Reis in 1513 on a piece of gazelle skin, and is considered one of the first geographical maps to accurately depict the coastlines of South and North America. But the most amazing thing is that it shows the outlines of Antarctica, which at that time was completely unknown, and that's understandable. The map was created just 21 years after Columbus's epoch-making voyage. Antarctica isn't fully shown on the map, but is linked to South America. This causes geographers to question if the author meant the White Continent, while pseudoscientists create theories, like the map coming from ancient sources when a glacier connected Antarctica and South America. Yet, if that were true, the land should be snow-covered, which the map doesn't show. The continent's ice sheet formed millions of years ago, while Homo sapiens appeared between 200,000 and 40,000 years ago. Some seek evidence of ancient civilizations on the Piri Reis map, while others see it as a cartographer's error or the result of old myths about southern lands, predating Piri Reis. How else would maps with sea monsters exist? Ritual rice. In Retidian Cave, archaeologists found rice husk imprints on ceramics over 3,500 years old. Only a thin starch film and phytoliths remain. This confirms settlers reached Guam, bringing rice over 2,300 kilometers of ocean. No fields, terraces, or sickles were found, so the grains were likely kept for rituals, perhaps yearly, to remind ancestral spirits of Taiwan. For islanders, rice became a symbol of origin, making the tiny pottery traces more significant than a whole cemetery of bone harpoons. Venetian beads in Alaska. Archaeologists from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks discovered several tiny blue beads in 3 different places in Alaska, which were made in Venice during the Renaissance. Scientists say this discovery could rewrite the history of the discovery of America. Researchers believe that Columbus was not the first European to set foot on American soil. Most likely, it was the Vikings who saw America almost 500 years before him. Experts now believe that after the Vikings, other Europeans may have also visited these lands. Michael Kunz and Robin Mills, authors of a new study, found glass beads in 3 locations near Brooks Falls, Alaska, once inhabited by Inuit people. While beads and jewelry had been found before, this discovery was unique because scientists also found bracelets, rings, and a plant fiber rope. It was the rope that helped researchers conduct carbon dating and determine the age of the artifacts. The analysis showed that the items date from 1397 to 1488. Columbus arrived in America in 1492. This time range was also confirmed by analyzing charcoal that was found near the discoveries. Researchers note that these beads are most likely the earliest known European goods in America. It is possible that the indigenous peoples of America had contact with people who either visited Italy themselves or traded for items from that country, having bought them from others. Since Venice was the European center for glass production in the 1400s, many merchants sent goods from there along the Silk Road, which connected Europe and Asia. Most likely, this is how the beads could have reached the far east of Russia, and from there made their way to Alaska. Tutankhamun's ship. In tomb KV 62, among golden masks and thrones, Egyptologists found an object they called a yacht for eternity. This alabaster ship casket, just longer than a hand, has a crescent-shaped hull and bow, and stern shaped like mountain goat heads with inlaid horns. On the deck there is a tiny temple with columns, papyrus decorations, and a miniature sanctuary where, according to belief, the ka of the young pharaoh rested. The material is Egyptian calcite alabaster, transparent like melted honey. Under the beam of a lantern, the light passes right through, making the entire structure seem illuminated from within. The details are fastened with pins, and the fine lines of the design are filled with resin and pigment, so that even in the pitch darkness of the tomb, the pattern would not fade. On the sides are Tutankhamun's cartouches, guarded by Anubis and Horus symbols. Why need such a lavish little ship? Egyptians believed the pharaoh sailed the sunboat through the underworld to rise with Ra. This alabaster model is a pocket-sized version, a ticket for the afterlife. The durable stone casket has lasted 3,000 years, surviving sand and robbers, barely fading. In the Cairo Museum, it still looks like a toy liner ready for eternity. Century-old whiskey and brandy. The waters of the seas and oceans hide many secret mysteries that have accumulated over the long era of humankind. That is why they attract the attention of many treasure hunters and underwater archaeologists from all over the world. The most unexplored areas of the world ocean are considered to be the Antarctic waters, where a recent expedition by the Antarctic Heritage Trust made an amazing discovery. The researchers' unusual find turned out to be 5 crates of strong alcohol, which had been frozen in the ice for more than 100 years, according to the researchers who discovered them while studying the coastline. The whiskey used to belong to the British Arctic explorer Ernest Shackleton, who left it there during his expedition. Due to a shortage of food in 1909, the explorer and his team had to urgently leave the camp before the winter ice locked the sea. According to representatives of the Foundation, several crates were damaged by time and are difficult to extract. 3 of the crates contain Old McKinley's whiskey, while the other 2 hold bottles of brandy. After extracting the crates from under the ice, the researchers found that several bottles were broken, but there was still liquor sloshing in the others. After the crates were recovered, the spirits manufacturer White Mackay became interested in their contents, calling the find a godsend, since the recipe for making this whiskey had long been lost. According to company representatives, if they get their hands on this whiskey, they will be able to recreate the old recipe, and whiskey connoisseurs will be able to taste the authentic flavor of history from the past century. The Tarkhan dress. At first glance, it's just a piece of faded linen, but radiocarbon dating immediately reveals a sensation. The garment is at least 5,000 years old, making it older than the pyramids of Giza. Discovered in 1913 among burial textiles near Tarkhan, its details emerged only after modern restoration. This is not a burial dummy, but a real garment. V-shaped neckline, fine pleats on the bodice, elbow-length sleeves, pleats by the underarm seams, dark salt and fat streaks, and Nile sand grains in the fiber microcracks, all signs of wear. The dress was worn until the end, then placed in the tomb as a favorite garment so its owner could appear before the gods in attire showing her status. Hand-woven with tightly spun threads, the sleeves alone took thousands of precise stitches. The hem was neatly mended with slightly different thread. As the ancient seamstress valued the dress too much to let it go, this rare artifact offers a glimpse into early Egyptian daily life. While we often associate them with gold and stone, this tunic reveals a more practical luxury, crafting comfortable, beautiful clothing long before the Silk Road or trading looms. Near Bereka by the River Twit, amateur archaeologists found a 1,000-year-old relic, a pure gold pectoral cross with runes from the Kingdom of Northumbria. The most interesting part is that the surface was covered in runic symbols. After partially deciphering them, scholars found a name they hadn't seen before. History shows that over 1,000 years ago, the cross's location was within the Kingdom of Northumbria. Scientists also suggest this spot may have been the kingdom's religious center. The amateur archaeologists submitted the find for examination. Ancient objects that are discovered are not immediately recognized as valuable. First, the item must be thoroughly studied, and only then can scientists declare it an archaeological treasure. Sometimes this process takes years. It took about a year to confirm the archaeological value of the Golden Cross. The discovery truly puzzled scientists, as they initially thought it was made from an alloy, but it turned out to be pure gold. Scientists dated it to the 8th or 9th century AD and were amazed that nearly the entire surface was covered in symbols. Scholars have only partially deciphered them, revealing a single word, Eodruf, a previously unknown name. Scientists now likely know the cross's owner, who was probably upper class. As ordinary people couldn't afford such an ornament, scientists suggested that this might be an abbreviation of the real name Eordwulf, which has been mentioned more than once in historical sources. Moreover, one of the kings of Northumbria bore this name, and his fate was quite tragic. He was overthrown and later exiled from the kingdom. The pyramids, when they were built. The pyramids we see today are far from how they looked when they were first constructed. Don't believe it? Let's dive into history. Ancient engineers used an astonishing 6.1 million tons of limestone to build the main pyramid of Giza, the largest and oldest of them all, constructed by order of Pharaoh Khufu. But what do you think it looked like in the past? No, it wasn't sandy brown. It was covered with a shiny layer of limestone. Unfortunately, over time, many of the facing stones were reused. This likely began during the reign of Tutankhamun and continued for many centuries. Add to that the earthquake of 1303 AD, which shook them a bit. Nowadays, the pyramids still amaze us with their durability. For example, the Pyramid of Khafre has even preserved some of its original facing stones. It looks as if one peak is wedged into another. It's incredible. At the top of the pyramid, so-called pyramidions were installed, covered with electrum, a shiny mixture of gold and silver. Unfortunately, most of them have been lost over time, but some examples can still be seen in museums. Royal sapphire. This ring dates to the late 14th or early 15th century, when the English crown shifted from Richard II to Henry V. Its solid blue crystal is carved entirely from a single sapphire, forming a monolithic ring rather than being set in a frame. Creating it required a rare gemstone and diamond powder, the only abrasive that can polish corundum. In the Middle Ages, sapphire symbolized justice and was worn by kings and bishops during agreements. People believed the crystal would give oath breakers a fever. The cut surface shows a small step where the jeweler shaved it to prevent tool slipping. The ring weighs under 10 grams, but in the 15th century, it cost as much as a knight's armor. It likely belonged to a high-ranking court vassal. Records list the sapphire as part of the Norwich hoard, buried during the Lollard turmoil and found 5 centuries later. Greetings from the Neolithic. This magnificent artifact, a dagger with a bear's head, was found in the Pyhäjoki area of Finland and dates back to the Stone Age, around 4 to 2,000 years before Christ. Its exquisite design made from striped stone demonstrates the high level of skill of ancient craftsmen. The bear's head on the dagger's handle is not just decoration, but possibly symbolized strength, endurance, and spiritual guidance. In a cultural context, it may have been used in hunting rituals or to honor animals seen as sacred guardians. In ancient Finnish mythology, the bear was highly revered, linked to ancestors and nature spirits. The blade shows no signs of use, suggesting it was ceremonial. Such an artifact may have belonged to a chief or shaman for special rituals. The Pair of Anguish. Medieval interrogation chambers had many sophisticated devices, but the Pair of Anguish stands out as a symbol of pain. The device looked like a smooth metal fruit with a handle. Inside, a screw would open steel petals. The executioner inserted it into the mouth, rectum, or vagina and turned the screw, tearing tissue and breaking bones. It didn't kill quickly, but was used to force confessions or humiliate heretics and witches. Sometimes it was heated over coals to burn from within. The wounds usually caused infection, and even survivors often died from gangrene. Now, these devices are displayed in European museums. Makers' marks and serial numbers reveal they were produced industrially, as if torture tools were crafted like locks or kitchenware. A miniature marvel. This tiny almanac with an embroidered cover created in France around 1780 is a true masterpiece of 18th century decorative art. Its dimensions, just 3 by 7 centimeters, make it not only a work of art, but also an object of intriguing collectible interest. Such miniatures were popular among the French aristocracy and served both practical and aesthetic purposes. The cover is made of embroidered fabric and decorated with an intricate floral design, symbolizing not only the taste of the era, but also the high skill of the needleworkers of that time. The red and blue decorative elements along the edges add extra elegance to the piece. Such almanacs were often used as gifts, accompanied by personal inscriptions or poems, which added even more personal value to the item. Its small size suggests that it was intended to be carried in pockets or reticules, allowing the owners to display their refined taste. It may have contained brief notes, calendars, or even love messages, making it a witness to the intimate moments of life in those years. Secret rooms. What might be hidden inside the pyramids? Theories range from religious artifacts and treasures to ancient scrolls of knowledge, and some even believe artifacts of cosmic gods could be concealed in the Egyptian pyramid's secret chambers. Remember the story from the 1990s when a robot lowered into one of the shafts and encountered mysterious doors? The great scholars of antiquity, the Greeks and Romans, were fascinated by the craftsmanship of the pyramid builders. And medieval Arab chroniclers, such as al-Masudi and al-Idrisi, wrote about wonders, gold, and mummies that may have been found inside. But not all scholars agree that the pyramids served only as tombs. Supporters of alternative history claim that the Great Pyramid could have been a time capsule, a repository of knowledge from an ancient civilization that became the foundation of ancient Egypt. And there is an even more exotic theory from Christopher Dunn, who suggested that the Great Pyramid could have been nothing less than a power plant. And don't forget about the Hall of Records, the legendary ancient library, where, according to some researchers, all the knowledge of the ancients is stored, knowledge that could shake the very foundations of our understanding of the world. The treasures of the Allans. The southern outskirts of the Chechen village of Alcancala have long been listed in the Archaeological Register, but the excavations of 2025 sharply increased interest. At the bottom of a narrow tomb, carefully lined with stone, a pendant gleamed, a thin gold ring with 5-faceted almandine inlays. Just to the right lay a glass bowl the color of melting glacier. The chemical composition confirmed Byzantine or Persian origin. Among the horse's bones, bronze cilia were found, and along the warrior's legs, scabbards decorated with stylized griffins, typical of Sasanian art. The burial dates to the late 9th century, when Alania controlled the passes between the Black Sea and Caspian. The rich inventory suggests a high-status individual, possibly nobility. The pendant's jeweler's technique and local gold mixed with Caspian platinum indicate it was made locally, with granulation on an adhesive known from carafines. Together, the tomb challenges the old view of nomads as just intermediaries. Alanian society at the end of the first millennium was more complex, with their own jewelers, long-distance glass trade, close ties to Iran and Byzantium, and a drive to immortalize status with gold and horse harness. A surprise from the well. This is one of the rarest and most unique gemstones in the world. Sri Lanka is one of the leading suppliers of gemstones to the global market. In just 2020, the island nation earned $500 million from exporting valuable minerals. Here, for example, are the oldest sapphire mines in the world, which once filled the treasury of King Solomon himself. And 2021 was marked for Sri Lanka by several sensational and especially valuable discoveries, one of which was found in a well in the Ratnapura area. It happened in the summer of 2020 when workers were digging a well in the yard of a local jeweler and came across a huge stone. The jeweler, taking an experienced look at the find, immediately ordered it to be taken out of the well for a closer inspection. Just imagine, the stone weighed 510 kilograms. After a thorough examination, it turned out that the find was a huge sapphire nugget, which the jeweler immediately reported to the authorities. It took almost a year to clean the stone from dirt and impurities and send it for examination. And only after that, in July 2021, the find was presented to the world and reported by all the leading media outlets. The total weight of the stone is 2.5 million carats. Of course, such a giant could not remain nameless, so it was named serendipity, which means intuition in Russian. Gamini Zoisa, an employee of the National Gem and Jewelry Authority of Sri Lanka, noted that the approximate age of this sapphire is 400 million years, and according to preliminary estimates, the value of the nugget is about $100 million. In September 2021, a sapphire nugget weighing 310 kilograms was found at a mine near Ratnapura. It was presented to the public in early December, but its value remains undisclosed until certification. The nugget has already been named Queen of Asia, Matriarch Chatal. Chatal Huyuk appeared as a chaotic cluster of clay houses, but DNA analysis of 130 skeletons revealed order. Relatives were buried under neighboring floors strictly along the maternal line. Grandmother, mother, daughter, together or in adjacent rooms. Men, by contrast, were arranged without clear patterns. In this Neolithic city, women were central to social structure, and lineage passed through females. The gifts, shell beads, Afghan lapis lazuli, a mother goddess figurine, were placed with baby girls, not adults. These burial treasures hinted at their future role as mistress of the house, while boys received few ornaments. Neighborhood layouts at Chatal Huyuk reflect a female-centered home with clusters of 3 houses around hearths. Walls feature hunting scenes, but central figures are female silhouettes with prominent hips symbolizing abundance. The settlement was called egalitarian because dwellings were alike, suggesting equality. However, genetics shows that while property classes were rare, real power lay in kinship controlled by the maternal clan. Remains of people with enormous heads. Scientists from the University of Honolulu and the Chinese Academy of Sciences discovered remains of a previously unknown ancient human species, Homo juluensis, believed to have gone extinct around 200,000 years ago. Archaeologists at the Shujiyao site found 16 skeletons, stone tools, and animal remains. The new species had notably large skulls, with volumes of 1,600 to 1,700 cubic centimeters, much bigger than Homo sapiens, 1,300, or Neanderthals, 1,400. However, scientists emphasize that a large skull does not always indicate higher intellectual abilities. Instead, it may have been an adaptation to the conditions of the Ice Age, when the climate became cooler and harsher. Homo juluensis hunted wild horses, ate their meat, and used their hides to make clothing. They lived in small groups, making them vulnerable to climate changes and threats. The dental structure of Homo juluensis resembles that of Denisovans, another late quaternary hominid from about 300,000 years ago. Like many ancient species, Homo juluensis likely vanished as Homo sapiens genetically displaced local populations in Europe and Asia. Sarcophagi. Archaeologists have found unique tombs and burial masks up to 4,500 years old near the Giza pyramids in the ancient necropolis. Several Old Kingdom tombs were discovered, the oldest dating to the 25th century before Common Era. Ancient inscriptions and decorations have been preserved in it. In one of the tombs was Paquin, the chief court judge and priest of the goddess Maat, who oversaw purification rituals in the pyramid temples of the kings Khafre, Userkaf, and Nusere. The second inhabitant of the tomb is his relative Nui, a nobleman with 5 court titles and a priest in the temple of Khafre. Excavations began in August 2018, and to reach these tombs, about 450,000 cubic meters of sand had to be moved. Some of the tombs were looted in ancient times but were reused for burials in the 7th and 6th centuries before Common Era. Because of this, among the later wooden sarcophagi, amazing works of art were found, magnificent clay and wooden burial masks. And all of this was discovered not far from the cemetery of the pyramid builders. This proves that the pyramids were not built by slaves but by ordinary people who were buried next to their kings. New traces of an ancient civilization. For several years now, scientists have been trying to solve the mystery of the ancient metropolis, which, by the way, is listed as a United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization World Heritage Site as the Burnt City. The city was founded around 3200 before Common Era and was rebuilt at least 4 times after devastating fires destroyed it. Like a phoenix, it rose from the ashes. This year's excavations yielded rare artifacts which archaeologists hope will reveal more about the mysterious city. Nearly every archaeological mission here aims to uncover why the city, destroyed multiple times, kept being rebuilt. This year, archaeologists found new evidence of a former settlement. Besides building traces, they also discovered many artifacts, some rare. Archaeologists dug trenches along ruined structures, hoping to reveal the earliest settlement layers in the area. Scientists learned from past excavations that this city's people were skilled in weaving, crafts, and stone carving, creating impressive decorative items. The scarab is a substitution. Remember the golden heart scarab from Katnifer's tomb? For years, museum plaques said it was carved for her, but a recent microluminescent scan changed that. Beneath Katnifer's engraved name, a faded text showed the original inscription had been scraped off to add the new owner. The scarab, made of green serpentinite, belonged to someone else before. Priests erased its past, inscribed new hieroglyphs, and placed it in the new owner's chest. The amulet isn't just a trinket. It holds a coded passage from the Book of the Dead, asking the heart not to give false testimony at Maat's judgment. If the name didn't match the body, the ritual could fail, so the secondary engraving required jeweler's precision. Even tiny differences in stroke depth are detected by the microscope, as if the artifact insists memory can't be erased. Repurposing made sense. The amulet was valuable, the serpentinite high quality, and the chain nearly pure gold. In the 18th dynasty, such items weren't discarded. They were sold or inherited. The main discovery isn't resource saving, but the attitude toward the sacred. Ancient priests valued the correct text over the object's original use. If a name was lost, they'd rewrite it, making the scarab ready to protect its owner's heart in the afterlife. Thus, a scarab at the Metropolitan Museum transforms from a relic into evidence of how ancient Egypt could rewrite an object's history. How many more museum artifacts have similar dual histories? Gantija is an ancient temple atop the Zagra Plateau on Gozo, Malta. The name means Tower of the Gods. The complex has two adjacent temples, southern and northern, surrounded by a limestone wall. Some blocks reach 5.5 meters high and weigh 50 tons. Now, for the most interesting part, this complex is about 5,500 years old, built before iron tools or the wheel existed. Gantija is a grand Neolithic temple complex. Both temples' walls are made of limestone blocks, stacked without mortar. The stones stay in place by their own weight. Local residents think these temples were built by ancient giants to worship their gods. Both temples have a layout like a rounded maple leaf. How did the Maltese construct them and move the massive blocks? Researchers suggest they used round stones like ball bearings, which were found near the site. However, transporting the limestone was only part of the task. They still had to lift the blocks. Could they really have done this by hand? Probably not. They used levers. The southern temple has a massive block with a hollow, thought to be for ritual washing before entry. Its 5 apses contained altars, and evidence from the cultural layer and animal bones suggests sacrifices to the gods took place there. Geologists believe that the Gantija complex was dedicated to a fertility cult within the temples themselves, and many figurines related to this cult have been found in the surrounding area. Unfortunately, in 1827, Colonel John Otto Bayer, the deputy governor of the island of Gozo, ordered the site to be cleared of debris. Along with everything considered to be trash, soil was also removed, which surely contained interesting and valuable archaeological finds that could have shed light on the mysteries of this impressive structure. The Mona Lisa from the depths. In 2014, the Odyssey Marine Team recovered the remains of the steamship SS Central America from the bottom of the Atlantic, which sank in 1857 during the gold rush. Among the bars and coins lying in the silt was a tiny daguerreotype portrait of a girl with dark curls and a calm half-smile. The glass of the frame was shattered, but the silver plate survived. The salt water cut off the oxygen, and the image remained at a depth of 2,194 meters for more than a century and a half. The newspapers quickly called her the Mona Lisa of the Abyss. The model's name remains unknown. Investor miners, their wives, and New York bankers were on that voyage. The portrait could have belonged to any passenger. Based on her dress and brooch, restorers dated the photo to the early 1850s, meaning she was under 30 when it was stored. Today, the daguerreotype is displayed with Central America's gold. The small silver plate reveals more about the tragedy than piles of precious metal. It stands as the only portrait of nearly 500 drowned stories, a glimpse into the mysteries Earth is revealing. Like the video, subscribe, and join me at the next excavation, where we'll uncover another forgotten story. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.